Welcome to a new episode about mythical creatures. Today I'm taking you into the fascinating world of chimeras. These mysterious hybrid creatures come from Greek mythology and consist of several animals, often a lion, a goat, and a snake, which are combined to form a frightening creature. But that's not all that the world of chimeras has to offer. Let's take a look at how these fascinating creatures have been portrayed throughout history and what role they play in the cultures of the world. The origin of the chimera lies in Greek mythology. It is first mentioned in the Iliad by the poet Homer, where it is described as a terrifying creature that terrorizes the kingdom of Lycia. According to Homer, the chimera is a snake-like creature with the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and a tail that ends in a snake's head. It is a descendant of the snake-like monster Typhoon and the terrible Echidna, and represents the chaotic and destructive forces that must be overcome. The chimera has often been portrayed in mythology as an image of the monstrous and the threatening. It reflects the Greek idea of a world in which chaos and order are constantly in conflict with each other. The chimera here represents the dangers and challenges that heroes must overcome to restore order. This symbolic meaning is also shown in the fact that it was defeated by Bellerophon, a Greek hero who rode the winged Pegasus. The chimera was defeated with a spear with a lump of lead attached to the tip. Bellerophon threw the spear into the monster's mouth with a daring maneuver. The lead melted there and blocked the chimera's airways. This is how the monster was defeated. And the moral of the story, don't forget the lead in battle. An ancient legend from Corinth tells that the chimera that killed Bellerophon was not the last of its kind. Some villagers believed that the chimera left offspring that were said to lurk in the forests and mountains of Lycia. After a series of fires, the cause of which remained unknown, some Corinthians reported seeing a fiery creature on the hills again at night. These sightings caused fear and superstition, and the taverns of ancient Greece long afterward talked about the curse of the chimera, a supernatural omen that is continually challenged by humanity but can never be fully defeated. The chimera's importance in the ancient world did not end with its mythological description, however. It was also an important symbol in religious and spiritual ideas. In ancient times, hybrid creatures like the chimera were believed to embody the boundary between the human and divine worlds. Their existence was an expression of the inexplicable, which both fascinated and frightened people. The chimera played a significant role in Greek art and poetry. Artists from the 7th and 6th centuries before Christ depicted chimeras on vases and reliefs, often with a wide-open lion's mouth and a curved snake's tail. These early depictions show the Greek interest in the fusion of animals and the interplay of their powers. The chimera is also mentioned in Homer's epic poem The Iliad, where it is said to be a mixture of three animals and of divine origin. This depiction as a divine creature shows how highly mythical creatures were regarded in the Greek world. In ancient Rome, the chimera reappeared, but in a slightly different form. In Roman mosaics and sculptures, the chimera was often depicted with a dragon's tail and an even more terrifying figure. The Romans saw it as a symbol of the uncontrolled force of nature and used its depiction as decoration on armor and as a figure in architecture. The chimera was meant to symbolize that even the greatest terror could be tamed by the civilizing power of Rome. An example of this is the famous bronze of Arezzo, a sculpture of the chimera from the 5th century before Christ, which has survived to this day and is on display in the Museo Archeologico Nazionale in Florence. In the Middle Ages, chimeras took on a new form. They were interpreted as demons and embodiments of evil, often as a mixture of familiar creatures such as wolves, lions, and snakes. In the art of this period, especially in the famous medieval bestiaries, chimeras were shown as warning symbols against sin and corruption. The Church used these depictions to remind people that the forces of nature had to be controlled in order to maintain divine order. During the Gothic period, chimeras and other hybrid creatures were often depicted in churches and cathedrals. These grotesque and terrifying figures served a dual function: to remind believers that evil exists, while also providing protection from those same evil forces. The famous gargoyles on Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris are examples of these symbolic chimeras that watch over the church as guardians. During the Renaissance, the depiction of chimeras changed as artists began to develop new techniques and perspectives. Dutch painter Hieronymus Bosch created hybrid beings in his works such as the Garden of Earthly Delights, that symbolize people's inner fears and desires. These creatures are not strictly chimeras in the classical sense, but surrealist depictions that illustrate the dark side of human nature and the idea of evil. Artists such as Leonardo da Vinci and Albrecht Dürer saw the chimera as a scientific challenge and tried to depict its anatomy realistically. They used the hybrid creature to explore the fusion of animal and human and to show how art and nature could be connected. These depictions show the chimera as a fascinating, if still threatening, creature. The chimera is by no means limited to the Greek and Roman world. Hybrid creatures can be found in the myths and stories of almost all cultures. Long before the Greeks, hybrid creatures were also present in Mesopotamian mythology. In ancient Mesopotamia, the hybrid creature Lamassu appears, a creature with the body of a bull, the wings of an eagle, and the head of a human. The Lamassu was considered a protector of cities and temples, and was supposed to keep evil spirits away. In ancient Egypt, they were singular hybrid creatures that were usually associated with divine and protective powers. An old Egyptian anecdote says that the god Anubis, with his jackal head and human body, protected the graves from robbers. A particularly bold thief wanted to plunder a royal temple and was pursued by a jackal with glowing eyes. The thief was firmly convinced that Anubis himself was watching him and fled the temple. He later told other thieves about this encounter, and so the fear arose that Anubis also protects the dead in the earthly world. To this day, Anubis stands as a symbol for guarding the dead and overcoming boundaries between life and death. Also native to Egyptian mythology is Amit, the soul-eater creature, a famous example. With the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hind legs of a hippopotamus, Amit waited to devour the souls of those who were deemed unworthy before the judgment of the dead. This shows that the ancient Egyptians also saw hybrid creatures as the embodiment of death and damnation. In Hindu mythology, there is Narasimha, an incarnation of the god Vishnu, who fought demons in the form of a lion man. Narasimha was called upon in moments of chaos to restore order and protect the universe. This depiction shows that chimeras can also act as protectors and do not always have to embody evil. In South India, there's a saying, the hands of Narasimha, which is still used today to describe someone who suddenly and unexpectedly offers protection or support. The story goes that one night a devout Hindu was attacked by bandits as he made his way to a holy temple. In desperation, he prayed to Narasimha, the man-lion god, and suddenly two large lions leapt out the jungle and drove the robbers away. The man was unharmed, and from that day on, the saying spread, representing all who rushed to the rescue without warning. In Chinese culture, however, the Qilin is a benevolent chimera that is seen as a herald of peace and prosperity. The Qilin is often depicted as a hybrid creature with features of dragons, deer, and horses, and is considered a symbol of justice and protection. Unlike in Western mythology, the focus here is on positive aspects that show the chimera as a lucky creature. The manticore, a hybrid creature from Persian legends, is a creature with a human face, the body of a lion, and a scorpion or dragon sting on its tail. This man-killer, as the name translates, represents the threat posed by foreign, inscrutable powers. In Persian mythology and later in Europe, it was feared as a robber and cannibal. The manticore appears in various European bestiaries of the Middle Ages and shows the fascination with the exotic and threatening world of the Orient. Here the manticore becomes a chimera, symbolizing the fear of the unknown. According to legend, a Persian emperor, known for his cruelty, acquired a manticore as an exotic trophy. The creature, with its lion-like body and human-like face, was kept in an underground room in the palace. The emperor is said to have lost interest in the creature until one night a mysterious fire broke out in the palace and the monster inexplicably disappeared. It is said that the manticore escaped from the palace and fled to the mountains, while the people saw it as a sign of divine vengeance for the emperor's tyranny. Even centuries later, shepherds in Iran are said to have told stories of encountering a lion creature with human features in the wild. In Japan, there is a chimera of its own called the Nue, which appears in classical literature and folklore. The Nue has the head of a monkey, the body of a badger, the legs of a tiger, and a snake's tail. In the famous work Heike Monogatari, the Nue is described as a harbinger of bad luck and a herald of disasters. Japanese scholars and artists of the Middle Ages saw the Nue as a being that embodies confusion and chaos. This creature was often seen as a harbinger of disease and social unrest, illustrating how hybrid creatures take on similar roles in different cultures. The fusion of the different animal species here also emphasizes the incompatibility of forces and contradictions that exist in every person and in society. One particular story revolves around a farmer who heard a dark melody every evening in front of his hut and was convinced that the Nue was sitting on the roof. One night he gathered all his courage and went out to drive the creature away. But instead of fighting it, he peacefully offered it food. The story goes that the Nue disappeared from that night and the farmer never had nightmares again. This story inspired many Japanese to make the path of respect and peace when having nightmares. In African mythologies, especially among the Xhosa and Zulu, the Impundulu is found, a being with hybrid characteristics of humans and animals. It is often depicted as a gigantic bird with blood-red plumage and can transform into a human. This hybrid creature is usually described as a malicious creature that summons lightning and brings disease. Unlike Western chimeras, the Impundulu symbolizes not only misfortune, but also the power of the shaman or magician who is able to communicate with and influence supernatural entities. In Iran and Central Asia, there are legends about the Simurgh, a giant hybrid creature often depicted as a bird and worshipped as a symbol of wisdom and healing. One anecdote tells of an old medicine man who claimed that the Simurgh had revealed the secrets of healing to him in a dream. He saw a bird with golden plumage that showed him which herbs could save lives. The medicine man became famous for his healing skills, and the villagers believed that the Simurgh had guided his hand. The Simurgh has since stood as a symbol of knowledge and enlightenment that appears to people in moments of need. As always, I have also collected one or two stories on the subject of chimeras. In the Middle Ages, for example, the depiction of chimeras as protective symbols in stone was common on many churches and castles in Europe. One anecdote tells of a castle in France where it was said that the statues of chimeras would come to life at night to protect the castle. When the French castle was threatened by attackers, the lord of the castle told his soldiers that the chimeras would awaken to defend themselves and give them strength. The soldiers are said to have fought so bravely that the attackers were convinced that the creatures were really alive. Rumors continued to circulate for a long time that these living chimeras made the castle invincible. A particularly strange anecdote about chimeras comes from the ancient city of Athens. A sculptor, famous for his depictions of chimeras and hybrid creatures, went mad one day and declared that the chimeras he had created were haunting him. In the darkness of his studio, the sculptures are said to have come to life and wandered around him until he screamed that he himself was becoming a chimera. The man eventually disappeared, and the Athenians believed that he had been turned into a chimera and fled into the woods as a creature. His abandoned sculptures were later called cursed, and many people did not dare touch them for centuries. In Mexico and other parts of Central America, there are legends about nahuals, people who have the ability to transform into animals, often for their own protection or to do good or bad. One popular story tells of a nahual who lived in a small village who turned into a huge black dog at night. The villagers feared him until one day a little girl disappeared and the dog was seen bringing her back to the village. Villagers have since believed the nagual to be a guardian spirit and respected the power of these hybrid creatures as a link between humans and animals. A legend from the Italian Dolomites tells of a giant chimera once haunting the mountain villages. According to the legend, an old hermit managed to petrify the creature through prayers before it could destroy the entire valley. The old man told the villagers that although the chimera was now made of stone, its power still rested in the rocks. To this day, some hikers believe that they can see the outlines of animals and creatures in the rocks of the Dolomites, as if the chimera is still waiting to be released. With the Enlightenment and advances in science, belief in the chimera largely disappeared. But the fascination with hybrid creatures and the symbolism of this chimera remained and found new forms of expression in various areas in the 19th and 20th centuries. The term chimera today refers to the mythical hybrid creature as well as a variety of concepts in science, art, and popular culture. Originally, the chimera, from the Greek chimaira for hybrid, described a figure from Greek mythology that combined characteristics of several animals, usually a mixture of lion, goat, and snake. The creature embodied fear and terror and inspired a variety of stories and symbols in later eras and cultures. Today the meaning has expanded and is used in several areas. In biology, a chimera describes a living being that combines cells or tissues from two different genetic origins. This occurs naturally or can be deliberately induced. One form of natural chimera occurs when two fertilized eggs fuse in the early stages of development and develop into a single organism. This results in the individual having two genetically different cell lines. In research, chimeric organisms are deliberately created by combining cells or tissues from different species. In medicine, advances in genetic and cell research have led to the goal of using human cells in animals to grow organs for transplantation. These applications raise ethical questions, especially with regard to the limits of genetic research and the introduction of human cells into animals. Such interventions stimulate discussions about the balance between scientific progress and moral values. The term chimera is also established in medicine, especially in immunology and transplantation research. In organ transplants or stem cell therapies, a chimeric state can occur when recipient cells and donor cells coexist in an organism. This can lead to problems, but in certain cases chimeras are helpful because the mixed cell structure can prevent rejection reactions. Research into chimeric antigen receptors, so-called CAR T cells, is a promising approach in the treatment of cancer. These are genetically modified immune cells that can recognize and attack specific tumor cells. Chimeras are found in art and architecture as symbolic figures, often in the form of sculptures and depictions on buildings. Gothic cathedrals, such as Notre Dame in Paris, feature numerous chimera and gargoyle figures, which are considered protective beings against evil spirits and are often depicted in a grotesque manner. These chimeras have both decorative and symbolic meaning. Artists depict chimeras to visualize concepts such as duality, change, or the inexplicable. Often the theme is used as a metaphor for the union of contradictory elements or the human fascination with the unknown. The idea of the chimera has survived in popular culture and can be found in books, films, and video games. Modern stories take up the symbolism of the hybrid creature often to address questions of identity, courage, and transformation. Chimeras are popular creatures in fantasy literature and culture, often serving as a threat or puzzle to the protagonists. In role-playing games and video games, the Chimera is a well-known enemy figure that appears dangerous and fascinating at the same time, due to its animalistic hybrid forms and abilities. In science fiction, chimeras are sometimes used as metaphorical or even physical hybrids to explore the limits of human existence. Stories of genetic hybrids and artificial creatures take chimeric nature as a starting point. In philosophy and psychology, the concept of the chimera is used metaphorically to shed light on contradictory aspects of humans and reality. In psychology, the chimera is an image for people who combine inner conflicts or opposites, for example, rational and emotional parts. It is used to convey the idea of the human psyche as something complex and torn. The chimera can stand as a concept for the search for identity and wholeness, especially in the philosophy of the self. Humans are viewed as a mixture of different influences, a chimeric being that is always in a state of change and adaptation. The term chimera is used in everyday language and society to refer to illusory ideas, dreams, or something impossible. The word chimera is often used as a synonym for an unattainable illusion or mirage. For example, a political vision that is considered unrealistic or unattainable. In rhetoric, the chimera serves as a metaphor for ideological or economic goals that are difficult to achieve. The term suggests the existence of an ideal goal that proves to be impractical or difficult to achieve in reality. The chimera is now a symbol of duality, the connection of opposites, and the human desire to cross boundaries. In various disciplines, it is a useful concept for explaining complex or multi-layered phenomena, be it in biology, art, or philosophy. It reminds us of the limits of knowledge and, at the same time, asks us how far we should and can go in exploring and overcoming these limits. That's it for today. I can't say anything more about the topic of chimeras. As always, no guarantee of accuracy or completeness. I hope you enjoyed the stories about chimeras. If you want to find out more about the fascinating world of fairy tales and legends, stay tuned and don't miss our next episodes. Until next time, stay curious and goodbye. All the best. See you soon.